Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, how are you today? Come back again with me. I am Fida Hasana. In this video, I will explain you about the geography chapter in a book with the title Multicultural Education in a Pluralistic Society in 10th edition by Donna, Koenig and Philip Zichin. Explained in the previous video by my partner Miss Vira. So in this time we will learn about the next sub-chapter, which is about migration, globalization, and incorporating students of cultural and geographic differences into the classroom. Check it out. Okay guys, the first is migration. Migration is a movement of population with the aim of settling from one place to another place. To cut history, people have been on the move. They voluntarily move across international borders and within their own countries for educational and work opportunities. However, many are also forced to move for political and religious reasons. Today's migrants are primarily moving to high-income countries such as the United States and Germany and are born in the middle-income nation. For many, a major factor in the decision of migrants is the ability to send remittance or money to their families in their home countries. And then the next is globalization. Globalization is a process of integrating into the sphere of work advances in technology and transportation. Great global relations, they include all relationships that occur beyond the boundaries of states' administration. We live in a global world that is becoming more controlled by international conglomerates. Guys, globalization also impacts the ability of the world's population to live without famine, debilitating and killing disease, and brutally brought on by poverty, religious belief, or war. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, and other international organizations see the education of the children and women as critical to changing their economic status and ability to be self-sufficient. And then the next is economic. Technology is both changing the job market and opening communication across national borders. It provides opportunities to connect people around the world. The use of computer and cellular phones around the globe has increased dramatically over the past decade. The internet allows direct communications across national, political, and geographic boundaries. Individuals are able to communicate with each other around the world instantaneously via email and video conferencing. However, the digital revolution is not reaching the majority of the world's population, especially people in the developing nations. And then the next is environment. The environment is also greatly influenced by global conditions, change, and decisions. As the world's population increases, the need for food, clean water, sanitation, and jobs also increase. Rapid economic growth, which draws on natural resources, is expected to continue in countries such as China and India. Another factor is the increased consumption of natural resources and produced goods by the population of industrialized countries. Although the destruction of the environment is a global problem, some countries contribute much more to the problem than others. Industrialized nations are the greatest offenders. using more than their equitable proportion of natural resources and adding more than their share of pollution of the environment. The United States is among the leading consumer and environmental polluters. The United States is also the third largest consumer of water behind China and India, but the leader in per capita consumption. This is particularly problematic in regions such as California, which has been suffering drought conditions for several years. Guys, the next is resistance by indigenous peoples. Not all people are excited about the globalization that is opening up the world to the interests of corporations, investors, and politicians. Skeptics do not believe that this group have the best interests of the people in the environment in mind as they make decisions that consider only their profit and their own economic and social well-being. To the indigenous people, these strangers who want to take and even destroy the land on which they have lived for thousands of years, have no relationship with their land. Their land and its produce have much more meaning to the native and provide substance for living. Educators might have to become acquainted with other cultures to serve the new students effectively. Meeting with parents and listening to the students' own narrative of their experiences will help in providing a context for effective teaching and learning. And then the next is teaching immigrant students. Immigrant students, especially at the high school level, tend to be overlooked by their teachers and other officials. Their education is affected by a number of factors that impact their families. A large number of immigrant students are living in segregated, low-income communities. Guys, where you should begin if an immigrant student is assigned to your class? The first, you should be welcoming and supportive to the students. And then the second, you should find out from a school administrator what support the school district offer the immigrant students. And then the next, you should be conscious of the ethnic identification of immigrant students. They may be at very different stage of assimilation, which means they cannot be thought of as a homogeneous group. Some students will identify strongly with the dominant group. Others will be transcultural and successful in figuring out how to fuse the culture of the dominant society with their native culture. Still, other students will strongly identify with their native culture and even resist or develop opposition to the dominant culture. If you understand where they are, you can better understand how to use their native cultures to help them learn and possibly counter their opposition to academic achievement. And then the next part is honoring family cultures. Students' cultural background should be reflected in the example used to teach. Rural students do not relate to writing or software to school or work, nor the inner city students easily relate to single-family homes with large yards and no other house around them. It would be hard to relate to a story in a book about the father who is a pilot if you have never even been close to an airport. If students seldom see representation of themselves, their families, or their communities in the curriculum, it is difficult for them to believe that the academic content has any meaning or usefulness for them. A teacher who understands the experiences of students from different cultures, backgrounds, can use that knowledge to help students learn subject matter. A teacher's sensitivity to those differences can be used to make students from opposite groups feel as comfortable in the class as those from the dominant culture. And then the next is incorporating global perspectives. Because our world has become so interdependent and will become even more so in the future, it is important that students have an understanding of global connection and how they impact their lives. As you plan lessons, think about how you can integrate worldwide, even in action. Another strategy for incorporating global issues into the curriculum is to help your students think about topics from the perspective of different classes of people in another country. Their perspective on an issue could be the same or quite different from those of students in your classroom. Globalization itself will look quite different from the perspective of a less developed nation than from the perspective of a developed nation. Indigenous people look at the environment in a very different way than oil companies. Presenting different perspectives will help students clarify the issues and understand why different people think quite differently about the same issues. And then the next is working with families and communities. Not all parents feel welcome in schools, in part because most schools reflect the dominant culture in language rather than their own. Educators must know the community to understand the cultures of families. Because members of the community might object to the content and activities in the curriculum does not mean that educators cannot teach multicultural. It does suggest that they know the sentiment of the community before introducing concepts that might be foreign and unsusceptible. Only then can educators develop strategies for effectively introducing such concepts. The introduction of controversial issues should be accompanied by the education of parents and by the presentation of multiple perspectives that place value on the communities more. In addition, the community becomes a result in a multicultural classroom. We can learn much about cultures in the community through participation in activities and by inviting community members and perhaps some parents into the school. Community speakers and helpers should represent by diversity of the community. Speakers also should be selected from different roles and age groups. Not only will students learn about other cultural groups, but so will you. Okay guys, that's all for me. Thank you so much for your interest and attention. Remember, the education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. By Nelson Mandela. And then always excited and see you in the next video. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.